anything in sports, join me.
Wake up to Good Morning Uganda, weekdays on UBC.
Live from Now Avenue in UBC Studios, this is Good Morning Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Indeed, the national song that has just played reminds us of the three sentences that are in the national anthem. O Uganda, may God uphold thee. We lay our future into thy hands. 100 years later, we have surely seen the truth of that matter, celebrating 100 years of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda, and my name is Priscilla Naloga. This morning, I am in the honorary of, at that time they used to call them Sir. So I am honored to be with Sir Felix Nkunda.
I tell you.
Good morning to you, Sir Felix
Good morning,
Nkunda.
Priscilla. And today it is another special day where we do celebrate 100 years of Parliament or legislation. Now, do also remember that it was on the 23rd of March,
1921. 1921. Where were you? First of all, I was trying to do the math, and even my grandfather was nowhere to be seen in 1921.
Yeah, indeed.
Wow,
it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing
far.
where the first sittings, in particular, for Ugandan purposes, even if it was restoration from a colony,
that is true.
For that matter, then
that is true.
Had to sit here in this protectorate, then now called Uganda. Now we do celebrate 100 years today with Parliament, and definitely we'll be carrying out our activities as a team. Our broadcast here at the Parliament, Ugandan Parliament, and right behind you can see how amazing and beautiful it looks, and it does read
glory, it is beauty, and it reads the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda.
And the Frenchman will say the Parlement de la Uganda.
So
clearly, I don't know how they say it in
Swahili.
Swahili. Yeah, that one Jagenda will definitely tell us. But clearly, also, but something quite beautiful also today, we will be giving you a bit of a feel. We'll be talking to a couple of people who have worked here for quite a time. Maybe members of Parliament, maybe other staff, support staff, maybe people who do with security and whatever it is. Just to give you a feel of how this place has turned over time. Now, from the British colony, it came into the hands of the Asians. Later on, we saw a couple of delegates that were Ugandan, but from different regions, like Buganda, Busoga, Bunyoro. Then that were the most important kingdoms. And the aftermath, again, saw more and more blacks sit on the legico. Now, later on, also, that was called the Parliament. So much has happened in this Parliament, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all that we shall be bringing to you.
So today we want to find out how many Asians are still in Parliament of Uganda. We want to find out how many Indians are still members of Parliament in Uganda. And as well, how many women have gotten on board, and what are the changes that have come through the 100 years of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. But also, we're going to take a grand tour of the place. I'm told there's a coffee at the roof. I need to check it out. I didn't know that those things existed. There's an art gallery of the history, members of Parliament, speakers of Parliament, deputy speakers of Parliament, all the way from 1921. Can you imagine? But of course,
also something quite beautiful, Priscilla, is that at the main entrance of the Ugandan Parliament, you do realize that at the time of its construction, there weren't as many tribes as there are today. So they try to reflect all the emblems of those kingdoms on the main entrance. Now that was quite symbolic to bring into contemplation that this was a place where all Ugandans would conglomerate to forge a way forward for Uganda. Now that and more is what we'll be bringing to you, our lovely viewers, but also don't forget to leave your comments on our social media platforms to follow on our poll question. Now we're asking, what are the most memorable things that you do remember about this Parliament since you started understanding?
Understanding, indeed.
Because clearly it's as early as 100 years ago. So when you started understanding is when you can start telling your story.
That is true.
Now we'll check in. It is quite a process, but we'll check in and we'll meet on the other side. But as we meet on the other side, we'll let you enjoy the beautiful, some of the gospels, the songs that celebrate Uganda. Now today is a day we must celebrate. We will be back as we check in.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Now, well, of course, we do track 100 years of Parliament from the beginning of the same way we did have the very first sitting in the name of the legislature. Now, that was handed over by John Bowens Griffin. Thereafter, we saw Nahendra M. Patel, now Edward Rugumayo, Francis Kebutagira, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. Again, now the aftermath, of course, gave us James Wakapabulo, and then thereafter Edward Sekandi and Rebecca Kadaga Alitwala, currently also sitting as Speaker. Now, we do come to Parliament today to celebrate with you. And I'm not alone, of course, to give you the broadcast here at Parliament. We will have Priscilla Narwoga.
Yes, Felix, it's quite exciting to be here in this space. It's honestly my first time to be here, and I'm really intrigued by everything I'm seeing. Right from the entrance that you see in the background, I just love the hanging up there on those mighty walls, the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. And later on, we will try to check out the gate. As we earlier had told you, the emblems representing different regions of Uganda, just to bring unity. And speaking of unity, of course, we do this with Robert Chirabo, Sir Robert Chirabo. Back in the days, they used to be regarded as Sir.
Actually, it would be called Sir Bob.
Sir, oh yes, Sir Bob.
Well, but talking about Sir, actually the governor at the time, when you had the first sitting of the Legislative Assembly, the Legico, that was Sir Robert Graydon,
Hello.
who was the governor at that time.
Yeah.
And by then, Parliament was not at this, this one of the premises of Parliament. Actually, the first sitting that happened in 1921 under the governorship of Sir Robert was at Entebbe. If you know the current National Meteorological School, that is where the first sitting was.
Yeah.
By then, those were the chambers of the High Court. And so if you want to track back the first Parliament where it sat,
yes,
you just go to Entebbe town, look for the school, the National School of Meteorology. Those were the chambers by then of the High Court, and that is where the first Parliament sat on that very day.
And indeed,
later, it's from Entebbe, when the numbers grew to 60, they shifted. That was in 1955, when they came to then Kampala City Council, currently known as City Hall.
Yes.
That
right
is,
there.
it's just right there.
I know, it's
that
a very beautiful building equally.
Parliament was increasing in numbers.
Yes.
That is where they were sitting until they arrived to this magnificent building, come independence, as you see at the entrance there, when the Prime Minister by then, Dr. Milton Obote, laid the foundation stone, and then the Parliament of Uganda gotten these premises where we are today.
Okay.
So when we talk about Robert in the history of Uganda, most on this very day, you must not forget that the governor by then was Sir Robert.
So, by any chance, are you related to him?
Not at all.
every other day we get to know how old you are. But of course, from transitioning from Entebbe to the City Hall and to where they sit today, interesting to note that at 100 years, the Parliament now does take its sittings in a tent because of COVID-19. Under the new normal, practicing social distancing, they had to ensure that that does happen and that they are the leaders of the SOPs that we are supposed to be following. And so later, you will be seeing the marvelous tent that you see on your screens every single day with the parliamentary sittings. But also, something else that is marvelous for me is the coat of arms. It's right in front of us, and it is so glorious in its still standing on the building. When you enter, it's what welcomes you. The sight of it welcomes you. But I have a quiz for you guys. Who designed the coat of arms?
Well, I'll let Chirabo take lead since he's
the older one.
The older one, definitely.
You guys.
No, but
the coat of arms?
that's not written.
It is actually.
Oh, you tell us.
Yes. So it was designed by Ian Becker, and that was his first choice, and that is what they selected.
What I can tell you about the coat of arms,
yes,
it carries a representation of very much the traditions, customs, and the beliefs and practices of many Ugandan conglomerated tribes or societies.
So let's talk about the emblems that are represented there.
Oh, well, the aspects. You can look at the cob. There's a crested crane, there are two spears, there's a shield, there's a sun, there's a drum. Now, down, you see a lot of vegetation, definitely. And then the most other important thing on this national coat of arms is the motto of Uganda.
For
that
God.
I'll leave for Chirabo to
Oh, yes,
give.
Chirabo.
That is for God and for God and my country.
Yeah.
But also each of the animals and the bird they represents. For example, the shield was a sign and still remains a sign in Uganda. That is one of the weapons, a defensive mechanism that we use in Uganda.
And that's
the
because
spears,
the cultures that we had at the time used to use the spear and the shield for protection and for hunting at the time.
Then you go to the cob that gives you the wildlife of this country. The crested crane, we all know. The sign, the gentleness of Ugandans, why that particular bird was chosen to be an emblem on this. Then
But
it gives
first
you
of all, have you ever thought about the reality of that representation in the bird? Like, Ugandans are really gentle and they're calm and they're welcoming, just like the bird. When it sees a person, it smiles by waving its, feathers and spreading them out in different colors.
And remember, it's
and that is exactly what Ugandans are.
And it stands with one leg.
Yeah.
I show that yes,
Uganda stand with one leg and you see.
Balancing has never been a problem.
Okay, balancing has never been a problem.
I don't know if you can do it for the next, but of course, as we celebrate 100 years, let's not have fractures. Let's not have for failure to balance. But also, when you look at the water bodies, they show you, particularly that was Lake Victoria. Showing that this is a country that is gifted with water bodies. So each and every symbol on the emblem has great meaning that Ugandans should endeavor to know. Why was such a particular, the spear, the cob, the crested crane, the water bodies, what do they stand for?
Now, most beautiful about the same, Robert, again, as we do celebrate 100 years, it's important for us also to remind all our viewers, all Ugandans, and majorly also members of Parliament, because you are our host today, that this emblem should keep a reminiscence in your hearts every day. Let some of these particular aspects that define who Ugandans are. We talked about calmness. Is that what you see most recently? You talked about,
no, it's not.
Let's talk about nature. There's vegetation on that coat of arms. Is that what we see every day?
In our stories today, actually, there's deforestation, degradation.
That's what I'm saying. So, as we celebrate 100 years, we do bring a challenge, even to this August house, to this very, very mighty house. You are challenged to maintain the solace, the supremacy of the reflection on the coat of arms.
That is true.
When we talk about calmness, peace, protection, security, vegetation, natural resources, just to mention but a few, and how much have we done together?
Very importantly, that the four founders of this nation had a very lovely motto. Not many countries have that, where the country is entirely placed in the arms of the Almighty. For God and my country. Are we still for God and my country, or is it for God? That's
a good question. Reverend Felix Nkunda, of course, we still continue to observe the Lent period that we are in, and we will be observing that by taking a scripture reading from Reverend Felix, but reminding you that Good Morning Uganda is in hub of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. We're quite excited. We are happy. We are enthusiastic to actually see more of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. We will be taking a grand tour around where we are allowed to go. We will be having an interaction and interviews, Chirabo, with
the Sergeant at Arms, and we'll get to know more. What is the past that he holds? What is its relevance? Why do some people yearn, in case of anything, to grab and get hold of it? Because these are some of the things that maybe our viewers have been saying, because UBC carries us Parliament sessions. But there is so much that you need to know, and this is what the Sergeant at Arms will be explaining to us later for you to better understand the significance of the mass and actually what is its role.
We equally have the leader of the opposition who will be talking to us.
That is, she'll be telling us, first and foremost, people want to know the post of the leader of opposition. What's the significance in the August House?
Well, of course, speaking about significance, Robert and Priscilla, we will also dive into our daily devotion.
Yes, Pastor.
And this place needs also a lot of prayers. And we will bring the prayers to them. Now we will take a reading from Proverbs, that is 13:12, and it says, "Dream a little, for hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a dream fulfilled is a tree of life." Wow. What a reading today. That's as we celebrate 100 years of Ugandan Parliament and legislation in Uganda. Maybe also later on we'll be talking about some of the major and profound legislations that have been made by this House, because that is the core mandate of Parliament. Now, the same has been dwindled, if you've noticed, as Robert talked of yesterday, that many people don't know the purpose of Parliament. They mistake it for roads, water sources, burial, weddings. But we will have a discussion about maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or even more major legislations, statutory instruments that have emanated from this mighty August House. But before we do that, we will also go into our local stories and later on a snip into our international stories. But we will start with our local stories.
Well, talking about our local stories, just remind our view, we are in the premises of Parliament as we celebrate 100 years, in case you just turned on your TV set and wondering it's not Friday, where's Good Morning Uganda.
That is true.
Well, these guys. Well, but that said, we have to look at some of the stories that were in our bulletins for the last few hours. Just a recap in case you missed, to give you some of the highlights, beginning with that is President Yoweri Museveni, together with the First Lady Janet Kataha Museveni, who earlier yesterday visited the Tanzania High Commission in Kampala to pay their last tribute, that is to the foreign president of Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli. We would recall that 2 weeks ago, before President Magufuli's death, President Museveni had written a letter to the late about the East African pipeline project, whose signing would have been yesterday, but unfortunately Magufuli was already gone. The High Commissioner of the United Republic of Tanzania to Uganda, Dr. Aziz Honare Molima, revealed that Uganda and Tanzania joint venture oil pipeline investment and other hydropower joint businesses export undertaking will not stop despite the death of the president, the late John Pombe Magufuli, who was central in the oil pipeline venture between the two countries. Ambassador Aziz noted that since time immemorial, Uganda and Tanzania have enjoyed good relations, and even with the demise of President Magufuli, this will continue. What remains a work in progress now will be spearheaded by the newly sworn-in president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan, who initially doubled as the vice president of the People's Republic of Tanzania.
As we saw nature being represented in the National Coat of Arms, it's not relaying itself in our daily life. And controlled degradation and conservation to other parts of land use are threatening Uganda's forests and climatic changes. This is influenced by increasing human needs, agriculture expansion, and environmentally harmful mismanagement. A case in point, a lack of adequate forest fire control measures. Putting this in context, the Water and Environment Week 2021 has kicked off with collective voice calling for an action against water and environmental degradation and plastic pollution in the country. Among the public figures that called for action is the Queen of Uganda, the Nabagereka, the UN representative, Minister of Water and Environment, implementing partners, among others. However, speaking at the launch, the Nabagereka expressed concern about plastics choking the environment, saying that pollution through plastics is a very big challenge that needs to be addressed with urgency. The annual Water and Environmental Week is an event that brings all stakeholders in water and environmental sector to discuss and exchange ideas on issues affecting water and environment. The Minister of Water and Environment, Honorable Beatrice Anwo, called for collective collaboration to address environmental challenges and revealed that the environmental law has been revealed. The minister did disclose that more than 600 tons of plastics is disposed of every single day. The country has a number of inland freshwater bodies that have been contaminated with plastics litters, in addition to the pollution in the drainage systems in and around towns, all due to the rapid growth of urbanization.
Away from nature and protecting the environment, we now move to the education sector and the development partners, where Mrs. Museveni, that is the First Lady and Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, yesterday welcomed the UNICEF country representative to Uganda, Dr. Muhammad El Nil Saffield, to Uganda. The First Lady, Janet Museveni, assured him of the Ministry of Education's continued cooperation with UNICEF to ensure education for every child in Uganda. Mrs. Museveni said that the Education Ministry has been working very well with UNICEF in many programs for a long time in a very cordial environment. She hopes that this relationship will be strengthened and the relationship between UNICEF and Uganda will continue to flourish. The UNICEF country representative was accompanied by his deputy Shadrach Omoro and Rosemary Lugumbwa Ragenge, UNICEF's education specialist responsible for quality education. The UNICEF country representative, Dr. Munisu Saffield, said the engagement with the Ministry of Education has been one of the priorities from the day UNICEF came to Uganda and will continue. Dr. Munir Sheffielden said that UNICEF will invest close to $56 million in the education sector in the coming 5 years to implement the new 5-year country plan and programs, which she said will fully align with the National Development Plan for Uganda.
Looking into the law and order, Uganda Police Force has embarked on investigations over the feared projected domestic terror in different parts of the country. This follows a double attack on different petrol stations and the arrest of one Kalisa Daniel over forging bomb assembling. This was unveiled by the police spokesperson Fred Enanga while addressing the media. After the double attack on petrol stations of Gayaza and Sekanyonyi, police have launched investigations in what appears to be an organized crime. In relation to the feared domestic terror, police have also arrested one Kalisa Daniel over possession of engineered petrol bombs in Buike district, and according to them, there are some organized perpetrators of peace. Police also is in possession of one Julius Masanja, a teacher of Hope Primary School in Kasungu, Wakiso district, over aggravated defilement of a 13-year-old juvenile. In other security matters, Kawempe North Constituency Member of Parliament-elect Muhammad Segrinya was arrested for organizing an illegal demonstration in the central business of Kampala. Other investigations by Uganda police include a tragedy which claimed 3 ladies in Rubaga division who were set on fire. The Criminal Investigations Directorate is investigating into this matter.
Away from criminality, still we move to politics in political parties that usually hold weekly press briefing, looking at the Forum for Democratic Change, which is FDC, which on some business sectors. The party Deputy Secretary General Harold Kaija said the increased levels in criminality or insecurity result from unemployed youth who lost their jobs when the country was affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. This was at the party headquarters in Najjana Nkumbi at their daily Monday media briefing. The FDC attributed the increased criminality to the country to unemployment, youth that are now not having jobs because their business were closed due to COVID-19 pandemic. They said the imposed lockdown on some business sector has enabled youth engage in crime because they are redundant and want to make ends meet. In the other news, FDC party has joined the East African community to pay tribute to the fallen head of state of Tanzania, John Pombe Magufuli, referring to him as a yardstick in leadership. They have tasked other leaders at all levels to pick a leaf from the late Magufuli in order to foster democracy in their respective offices and national development.
Police's Criminal Investigations Department has confirmed that investigations into alleged utterance and duplication of academic documents by a section of politicians has commenced. However, National Examinations Board UNEB distanced itself from such acts and calls for penalization of the culprits. During the NRM internal party nominations last year, the Party Electoral Commission boss, Dr. Tanga Odoi, maintained that false or fake academic qualifications will have no room in the party process. Months later, allegations and court petitions over false academic documentations by politicians have taken center stage. The blame is largely pushed to the National Council of Higher Education and National Examination Board. Others, however, fault the judicial system.
Although the judiciary is not certain about the sum up of the petitions, Kampala Metropolitan is believed to have attracted over 10 election petitions. As required by the law, upon completion of filing of the petition, a schedule and a judge allocation is expected to be released by court. Mr. Karemani reveals that this time round there will be an allocation altering for judges and magistrates. Our efforts for a clarification from the Electoral Commission hit a dead end as they referred us to the National Council of Higher Education, a body charged with certification of academic qualifications, whose officials were also unreliable and unable to reach for conversation.
And that brings us to the close of the stories for local stories. But one thing to highlight is that as FDC is also joining Tanzania in mourning the fallen star, the late President Magufuli Pombe, even Uganda as a nation, the president of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, added his voice and also declared 14 days of mourning in respect of the fallen star as an entire country. And in due respect of that, every Uganda flag is flying at half-mast. If you will see behind us, every single flag that you're seeing right to the entrance is flying at half-mast because of that very cause, in remembrance, in celebration of a fellow leader in the East African community that is now resting.
Well,
Talking about challenges, and of course we do continue to send condolences to the people of Tanzania, as yesterday, as one of the stories done.
Yes.
His Excellency also made to eulogize the late now John Pombe Magufuli. But far from that, we will also dive into international stories where we'll be looking at sanctions being put again more and more on China. Now, Western countries sanction China over rights abuses. Now, several Western countries have also imposed sanctions on officials of China over rights abuses against the mostly Muslim Uyghur minority group. Now, China has detained Uyghurs at the camp in the northwest region of Xinjiang, where allegations of torture, forced labor, and sexual abuse have been emerged. Now, also China responded with its own sanctions on European officials, and it has denied allegations of abuse, claiming the camps are re-education facilities used to combat terrorism. But also UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said the treatment of Uyghurs amounted to appalling violence of the most basic human rights. Now, the EU has not imposed new sanctions on China over human rights abuses since the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown, when troops in Beijing opened fire on pro-democracy protesters. Now, in a similar wave, we'll be looking at growing global concerns about the vaccine inequity comes out to say by the World Health Organization. Now, the World Health Organization on Monday blasted the growing gap between the number of coronavirus vaccines administered in rich and poor countries, branding the inequity of a global and immoral outrage. Now, the World Health Organization also tore into healthy nations, now vaccinating younger people, at least who are at low risk now of developing COVID-19. Now, bluntly saying, they were costing vulnerable people lives in low-income countries. Now, the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom also came out to say it was shocking how little had been done to avert the entirely predictable catastrophic moral failure to ensure the equitable distribution of the vaccine worldwide. Now we do cross over to Africa, where we saw quite something very tragic and painful, where we saw at least 131 people killed in Niger, where we saw attackers on motorbikes who have raided several villages in southwestern Niger, killing at least 137 people in the bloodiest violence to hit the country in a year. Now, the government also said the gunmen on Saturday attacked the villagers in Intazayeni, Barokot, and Western, located near the border with Mali, shooting everything which moved, according to a local official. Now, on Monday, the government said the attack that left 137 people dead. Local officials have previously given a death toll of at least 60, but however, treating civilian population systematically as targets. Now, these armed bandits have gone to a step further into a horror.
Thank
Clearly,
you so much, Felix. Looking at
But I think today is all about celebrating. So we will leave it at that, and we leave you well informed in that manner. But you know, every single time we're celebrating, we want to hear your thoughts, your mind about the 100 years that Parliament of Uganda is celebrating from 1921 now to 2021. Robert Chirabo, I believe our viewers have a thing or two to say in this matter.
Our poll question this morning is: we want to know what is your most memorable event as we celebrate 100 years of Parliament. Please go to our various social media platforms and please give us your views, your opinions. 100 years. What is that really sticks to your memories when we talk about 100 years of Uganda's Parliament?
All right.
Please send in your views, send in your opinions, and let us understand.
Our social media platforms on Twitter at UBCTV Uganda. The hashtag is UBCGMU in capital letters, and drop your comments in that poll question there. We're also streaming live on our Facebook page, which is UBC TV, and on YouTube equally, which is UBC Television Uganda. Yes, we're going to be taking those dogs for walks if they don't bite one of us for breakfast.
Those are sniffer dogs that are ensuring that this place is very safe.
Hey.
That is why you see they'll go under a car, they detect anything.
Chirabo, you're not going to lie. No.
Well, let's talk about Priscilla. Priscilla, I'm speaking of something that I know very well.
No, Chirabo. Anyway, you're right. They're looking for your food that you left in the car.
And they'll make any sign, so we are safe. This venue,
but your food is
and
not
we call that sweeping a venue with sniffer dogs. That's what we call it in security.
We are also sweeping the Parliament of Uganda this entire morning. We're going to be having conversations with the Speaker of Parliament. We're going to be having conversations, Opposition Speaker, the Sergeant of Arms, and more. We're going to be giving you an entailed live broadcast of the Parliament of Uganda as it's celebrating 100 years of judicial existence. Felix, when was the first time you came to the Parliament?
I was in P4 at Shimoni, and I remember that time I came to discuss, can you imagine, with
like a debate.
Honorable George, that gentleman was former Member of Parliament for Tororo, Ekanya. Was it Ekanya? Yes, I remember his name was Ekanya. I was in P4, Shimoni demonstration. We walked here and we were supposed to discuss with him why children were not represented in Parliament.
Wow.
And to this day, do you have representation?
We don't.
Children? We don't.
Am I a child?
Are you not a child? That's a good one. We shall start from there.
But then I remember, why are there committees for the elderly? Why do they have to have?
First and foremost, to be a member of
We're
Parliament.
talking about, no.
Yeah.
So we discussed, and I remember in his words, I remember he said that this is something you must interest yourselves in as young kids. I think we're chosen two, me and some girl, I think it was called Pal Natamba. So this is something you must interest yourselves in as young kids, and always, because representation will move you far. He gave us some good, actually, he's back in Parliament. Now he didn't, I think he had lost last time, now he's back in Parliament. That is Honorable Ekanya. Yes, that's the name.
But at what age is he back in Parliament?
Meanwhile, he looks the same.
The
funny thing is, he looks so much the same. I saw him
teachers, parliamentarians, all stay looking the same. And presidents also.
Parliamentarians have a bit of
maybe
stress.
For the teachers.
But speaking of stress, when we were earlier starting off, we saw parliamentarians going for a jog. Apparently, it's now mandatory. You come in for work, you first go and exercise, so that we used to have a debate in people school. Knocking their heads during sessions.
Yeah, they don't. We used to have a debate. Who are parliamentarians? Who are members of Parliament? One of my friends he told us his father used to work in Parliament. So we're asking him as who? I don't know if everyone who works here is a member of Parliament, but that discussion we shall also get maybe when Chirabo will be talking to the Sergeant of Arms.
There's something that's talking about Parliament that has interested me. I first came to Parliament. We had a very strong debating club. That was in P7. Yeah. So we were told how a member of Parliament should behave, you know. Ever smart, you don't clap, you just stamp. So there was so much. So that time we come
That is why you're having the conversation with the sergeant to clarify on some of these things, how they conduct themselves in sessions.
Because we wonder what actually we were told, and when we came here, by then it was very similar.
Yes.
It was very similar. And I love, and you would see a honorable member of parliament, really a honorable member of parliament. Is it still the same? That's one of the issues we are going to be discussing.
Well, we'll bring it to a wrap in the 6 o'clock hour on Good Morning Uganda, the 23rd day of March 2021, with the song of the day. But as we return, we start off with the Speaker of Parliament, Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, giving us an insight, a review of the journey as it started in 1921 and where it landed today under the new normal COVID-19. The hashtag to use is UBCGMU, hashtag 100 years of parliament. And of course, Good Morning Uganda Extra is also going to be joining us on set, and we're going to be having a joint production with Jagenda Semakula, who will be joining us later on. But allow us to take an interesting entrance into the honorary building of the Parliament of Uganda. Have yourselves a wonderful morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by
No one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom bundles using my MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles.
MTN.
Daddy, surprise! Here is a pizza for you. Happy birthday to you. Daddy, you look not impressed.
My daughter, this is not meaningful to me. Alleluia.
present. One of them was three were ex officio, and 3 were nominated. The Chief Secretary was a member of the Legico, the Attorney General then, the Treasurer, and the Principal Medical Officer. Oh, and all these were British people. There were 3 nominated members. One was Mr. Hunter. Another was Mr. Leaves. The Indian community was supposed to nominate one person, but they did not. So the first sitting took place without the Indian, but definitely the Africans were there as guests. The Kabaka of Uganda was there together with his cabinet. There were some bishops and there were some judges. So that is how the legislature of Uganda started. At that time, the president of the protectorate, the Uganda Protectorate, was Mr. Sir Robert Corrington. He's one who presided over the first sitting. They handed over to after addressing the state of the protectorate address, he handed over to the Chief Secretary to continue with the business of the House. Now, in that state of the protectorate address, he spoke to the Assembly about a loan from the Imperial Government to Uganda, the benefits of the Uganda Railway, which was still under construction. He spoke about the depression then and how it impacted the Uganda economy. He talked about collaboration between Kenya and Uganda on customs arrangements. Now we have a customs union of several countries. He spoke about a census which was going to take place in April 1921. At that time, there had been a very severe rinderpest, and a lot of livestock had died within the protection, so the colony of Kenya, protection of Uganda, and the territory of Tanganyika. So they had proposed at that time that the 3 countries should have collaboration on management of animal diseases. Then they were also talking then about the possibility of generating electricity from Ripon Falls. Those who have been to Jinja must have seen what used to be the Ripon Falls and what remains of it. Those are what he was talking about. He was also talking about importing the first transport in Uganda, lorries. The government had booked a number of lorries to be brought to Uganda for transport. And then there was also some motorcycles for the natives, and then how to manage the central government. Perhaps also of importance at that time was that there had been a decision, I think by the colonialists, that both Kenya and Uganda should use a currency called the shilling, but should be based on the sterling. So we had pounds and shillings and cents. That was the state of the protectorate address on that day. Of course, since then, Parliament has changed. Between 1921 and 1961, when we had the Legico, where the Africans were, we had a number of speakers. The first speaker was Sir Bowen Griffiths. That old man there, that was the first speaker just before independence. It was followed by Mr. Narendra Patel. I think those who are here during the Golden Jubilee celebrations of Parliament, we invited him, and he came back to Uganda to celebrate with us. That was 1963 to 1971, when there was a coup. Then there was those 8 years when he had no Parliament. Then we had Right Honorable Edward Rugumayo, Chair of the National Consultative Council. I think I see him there. There's Mr. Rugumayo. Then after that, in between, Mr. Rugumayo apparently did not complete his term in the NCC. So it was completed by Honorable Alex Waivali. We need to get Mr. Wawale's picture there. He was followed by Mr. Francis Futagira. You can see him there. Followed by Mr. Yoweri Museveni. You can also see him there. That was Futagira was 1980, 1985. Mr. Museveni 1986, 1996. The late Right Honorable Wapakaburo, 1996, 1998. You can see him there. Right Honorable Francis Ayume, 1998, 2001. You can also see him there. Followed by Right Honorable Edward Sekandi, now the Vice President, and the Speaker now. That has been the journey of the Speakership of Parliament over the years. Of course, as I indicated in the beginning, the Africans were not represented, but progressively, the Ugandans have been able to take charge of their affairs, running 3 elections during all that time. The numbers were smaller, but at the moment, from 7 members in 2021, we have gone to 459 members, and the next parliament will be 529 members. We thought we should celebrate this centenary. However, we had big plans to have activities lasting about a week, but we can't gather many people, as you know. So we decided that tomorrow we shall have a motion in Parliament, and then wait maybe for a year to see how the COVID situation pans out, to enable us to have a national celebration of the 100 years of the legislature. So we wanted you to join us in marking this landmark. This is a milestone, and we have moved far from where we started. Tomorrow, apart from the debate in the House, there will be an exhibition showing the different stages of the parliaments. So welcome you also to visit tomorrow and see how things have grown over time.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello, my name is Dr. Henry Dungu, a consultant in hematology and oncology. Health promotion and disease prevention programs focus on keeping people healthy. They aim to engage and empower individuals and communities to choose healthy behaviors and make changes that reduce the risk of developing chronic diseases and other illnesses. Join me on New Health Chat every Thursday at 9 p.m. on UBC TV, sponsored by National Medical Stores, who are mandated to procure, store, and distribute essential medicines and medical supplies to all public health facilities in the country. Hello, my name is Dr. Henry Dungu, a consultant in hematology and oncology. Health promotion and disease prevention programs focus on keeping people healthy. They aim to engage and empower individuals and communities to choose healthy behaviors and make changes that reduce the risk of developing chronic diseases and other illnesses. Join me on New Health Chat every Thursday at 9 p.m. on UBC TV, sponsored by National Medical Stores, who are mandated to procure, store, and distribute essential medicines and medical supplies to all public health facilities in the country.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, of course, now we do come into another segment where we also, again, continue to do cause celebration of 100 years of legislation in Uganda. Now, today we did also pitch camp at the Ugandan Parliament, which is also one of the arms of government amidst the judiciary and the executive. Today we're sitting in one of the corridors of this beautiful August House, one that again is called the Pigeon Hole House, again, the Legislative House. I'm not alone, I'm with my colleague Priscilla and Robert. Once again, good morning, Robert. Good morning, Priscilla.
Good morning to you, Felix. And now, you talked about the pigeon hole. Why was it called pigeon holes in the first place?
Shirabo, they are probably when you're doing a tour.
When we're doing a tour, we'll show people
that it is like it would be that box where every member of parliament you put their information. So they're like pigeon holes. You see pigeons when they're digging through a tree, they create a hole like where they live. Okay. So it's from that reminiscence that they are called pigeon holes. So every member of parliament has a pigeon hole. If you have any information for them, any document you want to share with them, it is put in their pigeon hole.
Okay. It would be more similar to what previously Ugandans had before technology took over post box numbers. If you remember that you had a post office, if you move around,
postal address,
yes, and there was that particular box where your mails are put. So it is the same that's brought to Parliament, but also the name just changes. Felix and Priscilla, we are celebrating 100 years of Parliament, and yesterday a colleague asked me, but we are heading to the 11th Parliament. Why do you then celebrating 100 years of Parliament? Yet I remember the first Parliament, the fourth Parliament, fifth Parliament, but that is getting history right. That the first sitting of what we refer to Parliament happened in 1921 on the 23rd day of March, which is 23rd today and of March. So from that day till now makes 100 years. That is what we are celebrating. So we begin looking at Parliament before, before independence, and then we head into independence, and now after the 1995 Constitution, when we begin looking at the first, second, and we move on with Parliament. But importantly also to understand that when we talk about Parliament, people watching us, Ugandans should understand what are the roles of Parliament? Because this has been the problem over and over, that many people talk about Parliament. Felix hinted on it earlier.
The general public
do not know what exactly the role of Parliament is things, and they use different yardsticks to judge Parliament, yet actually they are not aware of the fundamental rules, one of which being to pass laws that will create or enable good governance. I love that word in our constitution. Pass laws that will enable good governance or provide good governance in a country. That is the first most significant role of the August House.
But Robert, just briefly, before even we come to that, there's something also important for us to bring to light for our viewers today as we celebrate 100 years, is that the existence of Parliament springs from a scholar principle that was propounded by a couple of scholars, and among them we have Thomas Aquinas, Cicero, we have, just to mention but a few. But the purpose of them was that when you're looking at administration, you do take cognizance that it's a tripartite approach.
That is true.
Now, where you have the executive that is at the beacon of leadership, because it has the presidents, the ministers, and all this. Now, there is no way you would have good governance, that Chirabo is saying, minus bodies that will check. Now, that brings into notion what we call is the principle of checks and balances. Now, checks and balances are majorly done by the Institute of Parliament, which is this place where we sit in. Now, no wonder its formation is under Article 77 of the Constitution. Article 79 spells out its duties. But one of its major duties, as Chirabo said, is to check. That's why, again in the same Constitution, you see that when His Excellency the President appoints any person for state duty, for example, I think it's 2 weeks ago where we saw the governor of Bank of Uganda, we saw also the IGP, is it, for police. The reason why they come to Parliament for approval, what you want to call verification, all this vetting and all that, it is to bring into life the principle of checks and balances. Now, without this place, you wouldn't have good, what we call the rule of law. There will be absence of transparency, rule of law, and of course constitutionalism. So it is not just a place where people want to make it look like it's just Parliament. It's just Parliament.
And also, Felix, to add on that, this August House has the authority and the power to check any government body, even invite ministers to come and explain issues regarding checks and balances and accountability. That's why as they execute their work, they have the committees where specific issues will go to, and should their need arise, they can call on any government official to come and clarify, explain, and cause relevant action for good governance and accountability.
But you speak of checks and balances, and it causes me to ponder on before 100 years that we celebrate today as the Parliament of Uganda, at the epitome or the beacon of the governance of Uganda. Before 100 years, we did have kingdom settings majorly in our country, and still even in the kingdom settings, they did have forms or bodies or structures that were more or less doing the same thing.
But you know what the difference is? I'll tell you, and that is clear in the mind as even I talk about checks and balances. For example, if I might take an example of the Uganda, they have the Ruchiko. But can the Ruchiko check the king's decision?
They just say yes, sir.
Can they?
Majorly. They can advise that the king has the final say.
Where do they even advise? That's the whole thing. Now, the difference in national or constitutionalism governance, where the Parliament comes in, is that, for example, if the Kabaka today chose OHT Wachirabo Nyonyi Ntono to become maybe a minister in charge of news and whatever, the Parliament of the Ruchiko has no business apart from just giving him
there isn't even anything to do with vetting.
For the kingdoms and the tradition societies, it was purposes of helping him administer places where he couldn't go and all this. But the Parliament,
which is the picture that we see first in 1921 also,
actually
from the
by
British Empire to the protectorates that they had.
That was the true picture of the same then. Because then, as Uganda was held to be a protectorate, the only relevancy of what semblance was the Legislative Council that emanated from the Order in Council of 1902 and 1922 was simply to make implementation of what the Queen had desired. Okay? if the Queen had desired so, that probably by then they were mostly dealing with three kingdoms, Bunyoro, Uganda, and Busoga. So the transactions were just around that.
Yeah.
The Queen has said, the King, the Queen,
these were just ground soldiers to implement a decision that was taken Whitehall, that is in the UK there, to see it go through. But also you must understand that the present day-to-day Parliament also comes out. You know, one of the things you must understand as we look at 100 years, that most of the achievements today were not received on a silver platter. Because like Felix noted, that is the 1902 agreement, you find that kings at one time, Daudi Chwa of Uganda, looked at how the affairs were being run under, that is the legico. And they said, but have a 1900 agreement. And what you're doing contravenes some of the sections there. So that's why we see that by 1945, we see now Ugandans representing, coming in to be part of Parliament and handle their affairs. And when you ask me, one of the biggest achievements of 100 years is that we've been able to have a Parliament that is typically Ugandan, of people's representatives, and also consecutively for the last 3 decades that Parliament has stood. There are many countries where parliaments have not been consistent. We also had this in Uganda at a certain time where the Parliament was no longer in existence, 71 abrogated the constitution, but for
actually, the scholarly
decades.
term is that Parliament was in disarray.
In this arena. So as we celebrate 100 years, these are some of the things that we look at as achievements, that would not have a governor as a speaker. We have Ugandan speakers. We have people's representatives that are running and showing independence of Parliament by the people of Uganda.
For me, most profound, as we celebrate 100 years, I must also add and say that we celebrate the leadership of the President, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, for consistently letting this House stand in its own supremacy. I can tell you that many leaders before him couldn't stand the Parliament, even amidst the checks and balances, but he has stood it and thrived, helped it actually make sense of it. So I must celebrate on this day again. Thank you.
All right, we will be taking a look at social media and what people are actually having a say. They're members of the Parliament of Uganda as they celebrate 100 years. Of course, the Parliament of Uganda does take its mandate from the 1995 Constitution of Uganda, and it allows them to actually make laws, and also the rules of procedure do guide them in functions, procedures, as well as compositions of the laws. And the laws they make here are for peace, obedience, order, and also to ensure that there's good governance to the people of Uganda as far as legislative matters are concerned. Now, as we are going away, we're going to be taking a tour later on to where the history of this place is. There is a wonderful corridor that has pictures of all the leaders that have been since 1921 to 2021. We're also going to be looking at the pigeonholes. I have to find out where the pigeonholes are and take a sneak peek into that. Also, Parliament MP to Felix, we're going to be looking for him and finding out where Katul Wama is and what he's up to this morning. Did he go for his jog? Shirabo, who's your member of Parliament?
Alan Sewanyana, the gymnastic.
We have to find him and also get to know what his journey has been as a member of Parliament. As of course, we got to find out that early in the morning, members of Parliament do go for exercising because at some point, ex-parliamentaries used to nod the head. Yes, so in order to curb that disease, I remember the Speaker of Parliament said now it's mandatory for members of Parliament to exercise every single morning. They take a run. And so I believe they're back in their offices, and so we're going to be having an interaction with as many parliamentarians as we can, Sergeant of Arms, Leader of Opposition, and every other person that contributes to good governance in this Parliament. Good morning to Uganda, and we shall be returning. However, leave your comments on our social media platforms, on Twitter at UBC TV Uganda, hashtag UBCGMU. On Facebook, you are at Facebook, UBC TV Live, and also on YouTube. You can walk with us the journey on UBC Television Uganda. We are honored to be here, and can we say happy birthday, Parliament of Uganda, from UBC and from Good Morning Uganda.
Well, of course, speaking about Good Morning Uganda, I must also say now we will take a break, but also when we come back, we'll be looking at the papers.
Yes.
So much news is made in this place.
That is true.
So much news is made in this place. The good, the bad, and the ugly we will bring to you today. But let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be taking you through what's trending in the papers. And also, Priscilla will be taking you on a voyage in this lovely place.
Okay.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Stay connected to the largest 4G network in Uganda, anytime, anywhere, using the Airtel 4G Pocket MiFi, available at only 123,000 Uganda shillings. This comes with 15 GB free, valid for a month. You can connect up to 10 users at a go and still enjoy a shared yet unmatched internet experience. Dial *175*9# to activate free 15 GB. Visit the nearest Airtel shop to get one today. Airtel, the smartphone network. Airtel is regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission.
That's their way of stopping HIV. What about you?
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Sinuk Uganda Limited, in partnership with Bunyoro Research Agency and Development Organization, BRADO, presents to you the Sinuk Q1 National Content Supplier Development A-Conference 2021 under the theme, Strengthening Local SMEs for Effective Participation in the Oil and Gas Development Phase in Uganda. Panelists include Mr. Alex Yamkama, National Content Officer, Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Martin Vyarhanga, Executive Director of Bunyoro Research Agency and Development Organization, Mr. Matthew Chiligonza, National Content Manager, Sinuk Uganda Limited, Engineer Fred Musinguzi, Chairperson of Bunyoro Business Club, Mr. John Walusimbi, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises in Uganda, Ms. Sylvia Kirabo, Head, Marketing and Public Relations, UNBS, and moderated by Mr. Bienkia Fred. The event will be live on UBC TV on Thursday, the 25th of March 2021 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Proudly brought to you by Sinok Uganda Limited in partnership with Unyoro Research Agency and Development Organization.
Winston Churchill named it the Pearl of Africa. Uganda is probably one of the most gifted countries in the world. The people, the food, the love, the climate, the culture, the scenery, and the peace and tranquility. Join us as we take you through the journey. The journey, live and exclusive to UBC, your public broadcaster, inspiring Uganda.
Welcome to English in a Minute. 50 years ago, the first humans stepped foot on the moon. But has anyone ever jumped over the moon?
Jonathan, guess what? My book is nominated for North American Wildlife Pop-Up Book for First Time Writers Prize.
Oh, wow. You must be over the moon.
I am, Jonathan. I could not be happier.
What was the name of that prize again?
To be over the moon means to be extremely happy about something. This expression likely comes from a short children's poem from the 16th century called Hey Diddle Diddle. But we don't really know why over the moon came to mean what it does today. And that's English in a Minute.
Through some of the stories that are trending in the papers. Now in the Daily Monitor, we'll be looking at 40 MPs fight to keep their seats. And among some of these MPs, we're seeing there Jim Mwezi, Joel Senyonyi, and of course Sarah, is it Jessica there? But Joyce Bagara, Muhammad Isegirinya, aka Richard, I don't know how that works. But also Muhammad Insedeko there, how they're fighting and what they're actually going through. Get yourself a copy of the papers.
Petitions have become petitions
again. But of course, one a very touching photo here where we see African leaders mourning Tanzania's fallen Magufuli there. In a photo now, the president also taking a look at the casket. Quite a touching and emotional photo, if you are to ask me. But also, we're looking at a couple of tenders at different places, that are URA, Total, UCC, UNOC, UDA, and mobs. Now, district hits most list by COVID-19. Trying to give you a list of those districts that are not really much affected by the COVID outbreak. And graft suspect enters court with gun. It's quite scary. But also, UA puts at least 10 million bounty on anyone who helps finding the killer of the lions. Yes, Robert.
That money is up for grabs, but of course you must come with proper evidence that can lead to arrest. And I think this is a good way that they have looked at. We're looking at today's new vision, the historic day when Parliament celebrates 100 years of existence. The new vision comes up with a very big headline that is experts speak out on NSSF bill. That is Kasai just later to the president angers workers, and the experts have now come out to speak. Still, the dark cloud over East Africa. We see President Yoweri Museveni and the First Lady mourning, that is the foreign president of Tanzania, at the Tanzanian High Commission in Uganda yesterday. Still looking at the new vision, that is UN donates motorcycles to Uganda police. This to help movement. And the question there is bleaching by injection worth it? That is a question for the ladies in the new vision. Then sugarcane farmers decry growing price drop. And Makere females top university architects class. And still in the new vision, we look at that is Parliament celebrating 100 years of existence, which is the reason why we are here this morning in Good Morning Uganda. And we see microplastics that is detected in food. Researchers have said COVID-19, that is government warns of second wave. Oh no, second wave of COVID-19. The new vision brings you that also. And those are some of the stories that are in the new vision before head to sports. Yes,
of course, very much, and that you will get yourself copies of these dailies to do look and understand some of the stories. But only we do give you a couple of headlines to avoid you knocking each other, Chirawo says, on the streets of Kampala. But after this, we will take on Priscilla, who will be giving us an interview with one of the heads of protocol in this house that will tell us much more about this house. Give us a feel of what this place has turned to become over the years as we celebrate 100 years of legislation.
Felix, one thing I've noticed that moving through this building, every place has history. Right as just next to me is the masjid that was donated to that is the National Assembly of Uganda, presented by the British House of Commons. So at every steps you take, there's either a portrait or something to give you more of the history of this house that has marked today 100 years of existence.
Again, as we get to know much and much more about these portraits, we see a lot of art pieces. We can see an African art piece here that entails green vegetation, animals, reflection of the same. These all will be given to us with the next interview that Priscilla will hold, and they will tell us more about what you didn't know out there. But also, I must also appreciate some of you who are bringing in comments on social media. I've seen one of the very lovely comments by Joy Desire there, who has also caused us to remember what, again, for her, she came out to say that she celebrates Honorable Joyce Mpanga, the first woman to sit in the parliament, that is LEGCO, and still the first woman to graduate in Uganda, together with Madam Rhoda Kalema. Did you know that? It was Madam Joyce Mpanga, Honorable Joyce Mpanga, the First Lady. Thank you so much, Joy Desire, also for keeping it with us, and many other people who are watching UBC. Good morning, Uganda, here in the heart of Kampala at Ugandan Parliament.
This is Good Morning Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
sigala nga wuyinze ku network ya 4G esingira ddala mu Uganda obudde bwonna w'oli ng'okozesa Airtel 4G Pocket MiFi ku shillings emitwalo 12 mu 13 ejjirako GB 15 ez'obwereere okumala omwezi mulamba osobola n'okuyungako bannabalala 10 omulundi gumu nyiga *755* 9# okufuna GB 15 ez'obwereere awo nno olyoka owangalira ku internet kyalira edduuka lya Airtel lyonna erikuli okumpi ogyefunire leero. Airtel, the smartphone network, erungamizibwa Uganda Communications Commission.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
That's their way of stopping HIV. What about you?
Sinuk Uganda Limited, in partnership with Unyora Research Agency and Development Organization, BRADO, presents to you the Sinuk Q1 National Content Supplier Development A Conference 2021 under the theme Strengthening Local SMEs for Effective Participation in the Oil and Gas Development Phase in Uganda. Panelists include Mr. Alex Yamkama, National Content Officer, Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Martin Vyarhanga, Executive Director of Bunyoro Research Agency and Development Organization, Mr. Matthew Chaligonza, National Content Manager, Sinuk Uganda Limited, Engineer Fred Musinguzi, Chairperson of Bunyoro Business Club, Mr. John Walusimbi, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises in Uganda, Ms. Sylvia Kiabo, Head Marketing and Public Relations, UNBS, and moderated by Mr. Bienkia Fred. The event will be live on UBC TV on Thursday, the 25th of March 2021 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Proudly brought to you by Sinuk Uganda Limited in partnership with Bunyoro Research Agency and Development Organization.
Wait.
No one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom Bundles using My MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles.
MTN.
This is Good Morning Uganda. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda, and happy anniversary. 100 years, a century it is in the Republic of Uganda. As the Parliament of Uganda does celebrate 100 years, Good Morning Uganda has been allowed into the celebratory mood of the Parliament of Uganda. And as we see, we are in the corridors of the Parliament of Uganda on the second floor. And joining me this morning is Mr. Peter Odeke. Good morning, you, Peter Odeke.
Good morning, President.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
happy anniversary.
Thank you so much.
How does
Thank
it
you.
feel to be a part of history?
No, it actually is amazing.
It is.
There are not very many people who actually realize that legislature in Uganda. I've only been lucky to be part of it since about 2000 and something, in the middle of the 2000s. But I've read up, and it's been quite rich, seeing the transformation from what Parliament used to be before we got independence into what it is today, and seeing how it is changing and growing. So that is quite exciting.
Okay, very interesting. Well, as we get into the gallery, we want to see who are the leaders that have been a part of these histories as we mark 100 years of the Parliament of Uganda. But looking at the vision and the mission, did you know it? Well, Parliament of the Republic of Uganda, their vision is very simple: a transformational, vibrant, independent and people-centered parliament. Now the question is, do you feel it's transformational? Do you feel the vibrancy from your member of parliament? Do you feel the independency? And is it really a people-centered parliament? Those are questions that you can answer for yourself as they celebrate 100 years. Yes, it's for celebrating, but also causes evaluation from the people of Uganda. The mission for the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda is equally point blank in and white: to achieve improved accountability, representation, constitutional democracy, rule of law, and sustainable national development of Uganda. And so that is the mission: improved accountability, representation. Speaking of representation, Peter, I would ask you kindly, there's a gallery corridor I'm seeing to my right, and I would like to go through the history of those leaders.
Well, I'll be happy to take you through.
Thank you.
One thing I would let you know is it's a very short corridor. It's our gallery of honor, but it is packed with a lot of history. And the way it is designed is that one side has got pictures of our previous speakers, while the other has got the executive arm of government. Allow me to take you through.
So as you take me through, I take note that these pictures are actually paintings. They're not...
These are paintings, yes.
Paintings done by?
We have contracted different persons, but most of them were done by somebody who's called Odama, and he's done quite a good job, an excellent job in this. Now, let me first take you through the legislative side, and then I shall try and merge it with the executive side. Do you mind if I remove my mask? We'll keep our social distance. Okay, thank you.
Peter Ojeke is the acting principal of the project, and he's going to be taking us through the gallery as of the legislative side, executive side. As you know, it is the three arms that do govern the people of Uganda. Starting off with this side.
Well, we got our independence in 1962, but prior to that we had the Legislative Council as the legislative... LegCo, exactly. The speaker at the time was a Briton, Sir John Bowes Griffin, and he led us into the period of independence until 1963. Now, the first Parliament of Uganda, which started at independence, now had a Ugandan speaker, the first Ugandan speaker, by the names Honorable Narendra Patel. He was an Asian from Mbale. Now,
Does that make him Ugandan, Peter?
well, he was Ugandan. He was naturalized as a Ugandan, yeah. So we consider him as...
Asians settling in Mbale and also Asians settling a lot in Bunyoro region.
Yes, in many parts of the country actually, because they're quite involved, especially in the economy, all over the country. So you'll find many places in Uganda still have structures that are Asian-based.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because of trade that we had Asians settling in Bunyoro.
Mainly.
Okay.
Now, Narendra Patel was speaker from 1963 until 1971. You realize that in 1966 we had a bit of a crisis, the Buganda crisis, that led to a transformation from the kingdom-based kind of system we had into a republican system. Now, in 1971, Idi Amin took over as president, and one of the things that he did was to abolish parliament. So for a period of 8 years...
What was the purpose of parliament abolition?
Well, he claimed that Parliament was not adhering to the needs of Ugandans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was to demystify or remove the whole pigeonhole kind of system that
Now-
was with the British.
Now, the pigeonhole system, yes, it came through. It was part of what we inherited. It's a Commonwealth kind of standard, and that is how members of Parliament get all their official communication.
All right.
There's a bit of a story in that, but I shall come to that. Yeah. So between 1971 and 1979, we had no parliament. So all the laws in Uganda were being made by decrees, which means the executive would draft a law, agree as cabinet, and pass it. Now, when Idi Amin was overthrown in 1979, we went back to having a parliament with a different name, but with the same purposes as parliament. And at that time, it was called the National Consultative Council.
Okay. So in 1962, it was called the National Assembly.
Yes.
In 1921, it was called the Legislative Council.
Exactly.
And in 1979, it's then called National Consultative Council. Okay, those are three names that the Parliament has gotten over the years.
Different names, but the same purpose.
Same purpose.
Yeah.
Same
And it changed even further.
Okay.
I'll explain as we go along.
Right.
Okay. Now, Honorable Rugumayo was Speaker from 1979 to 1980. His term ended prematurely at the point that President Binaisa was put under house arrest. At which point, the rest of his term was completed by Honorable Alex Waibale. Now, the National Consultative Council was supposed to be a body that united Ugandans, prepared us for elections that would occur in 1980. Yeah. So from 1980, we hope to have a regular parliament or regular government again. So the elections of 1980 started what we call now the fourth parliament of Uganda, at which point the speaker was Honorable Francis Butagira. It should have been 5 years, but in this fifth year, we had a military coup, and the president then, Tito Okello, also abolished parliament. So for 6 months, we did not have parliament. So next time we have parliament, it has changed name. It is now called the National Resistance Council.
The National Resistance Council. That's the fourth name. Okay, interesting to note. But you've also mentioned something peculiar in the difference of years in terms of length of parliament.
Yes.
We had 1 year for a certain period of time, I think about 2-3 parliaments, then thereafter it stretched to extension of years to 4 years that you've mentioned, before we got into the 5 years. What brought about those different changes?
Well, it should have been 5 years each time.
Yeah.
So from 1962, we should have gone until 1967. But because of the Uganda crisis in 1966, we had a change then. So when the new constitution was brought into place, a new parliament or a new term of parliament started in 1967. And that should have taken us until 1972. But in 1971, we had a military coup. Now, the NCC was really a transitional parliament, and that led us into the elections. So this is the fourth parliament of Uganda, should have lasted 5 years, but in the fifth year, we had a military coup. This is when Milton Obote was overthrown, and for the 6 months, we now. Exactly. Even though the chairperson, President Yoweri Museveni, was president as well, you notice, of course, now he was holding two positions. One as a speaker, the leader of the legislature, and one as the executive head, the president. But during that time, they were able to achieve many things. For instance, the drafting of the new constitution, the 1995 constitution. So from 1996 to date, we have had a change of parliament, a regular change of parliament every 5 years.
Every 5 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's very interesting to note. Now, you have talked about other people that have been a part of the 100 years in this particular parliament as we celebrate 100 years. We have presidents, we have vice presidents that were also part of this journey.
Yes. Now, let me quickly take you through it. After President Museveni's 10 years as chairperson of the NRC, we had the 6th Parliament of Uganda that started. First of all, with the Honorable James Wakabulo.
Yes.
His term as Speaker was about 3 years, but in 1998 he was moved to become the National Political Commissar. And that term was completed by the late Honorable Francis Ayume.
Ayume,
Yeah.
okay, all right. From
Now,
1998 to 2001.
That was the term of the 6th Parliament of Uganda.
Okay.
And that term was 5 years.
Okay.
Now, the 7th Parliament of Uganda, as well as the 8th Parliament of Uganda,
Yes.
were chaired by Right Honorable Edward Chiwanuka Sekandi, deputized by Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga.
And this parliament ran from
2001 to 2006.
Then he continued into 2011.
Exactly.
So for two parliamentary
for 2
terms. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the 9th and the 10th Parliament of Uganda have been chaired by the Right Honorable Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga,
Okay.
deputized by the Right Honorable Jacob Olaya. So right now we are at the point that we start the 11th Parliament of Uganda. Another 5 years, starting in 2021 up to 2026. Yes.
Okay.
But from that point, it seems more regular and more people can understand it.
People more familiar with it. Now they can actually tell the changes of time, history, and also parliament.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
But Priscilla, allow me to try and merge this, the legislative, with our executive history.
Please take me away. I'm here to be well.
Now,
Please,
at the
Uganda.
time that we got our independence,
Yes.
as the 7th president of Uganda, it was 1963.
1963.
Really. Yeah, just a year after we got our independence. In 1966, when we had the Buganda crisis and the Kabaka went into exile. His Prime Minister, Apollo Milton Obote, took over executive powers as president. So he was Prime Minister from 1962 up to 1966, and then he became president going forward from 66 up to 1971.
Okay.
In 1971, we had the most dramatic takeover in Uganda. I would like to think, because government then was taken over by General Idi Amin Dada.
Okay.
Now this is the period when we had no parliament, from 1971 until 1979. Now in 1979, after Ugandans and Tanzanians in Moshi in Tanzania to have a new system.
Okay.
The person who was chosen
to
be president, voted then, was Professor Yusuf Kironde Lule.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Now his term was very short, but very dramatic, because he was only president for 68 days, and he's the first president to have been overthrown by.
And the reasons were?
They moved a vote of confidence. One of the reasons was because he refused to have Parliament involved in the vetting of his cabinet.
Okay.
And that is one of the things which had been agreed in Moshi in the previous. Tanzania.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
When you talk about our motherland Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, you cannot fail to smile because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens. Our nice good weather and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jinga tea drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it, made by
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Now, we had a very interesting scenario between May of 1980 and December when we had elections. We had what we call a triumvirate. 3 people ruling as one.
Number one was?
Number 1 was Saulo Musoke.
Number 2?
Number 2, Polycarp Nyamuchoncho.
Number 3?
Hunter Wacha Olwol.
Hunter Wacha.
So those were 3 people, one from Buganda, one from northern Uganda, and one from western Uganda.
Okay.
So these formed what they called the Presidential Commission.
And the purpose was to amalgamate the regions, the different regions of Uganda, and
There
make it
was
one.
representation in the presidency.
Yes.
Exactly. Now,
Of what importance was this to the people of Uganda and the legislative arm?
Well, there was supposed to have been a sense of stability, but also because they were trying to create a broad-based government. They thought it would be one of the ways in which they could unite the country, have representation from the different areas, and have a unit that could actually agree on issues, not as an individual, but as a commission, before they could transact anything. So this led us into the elections of 1980 that brought back Milton Obote. Now, his term was interrupted in the 5th year when he was overthrown
by General
Tito Okello. Now, his term lasted 6 months. And those are the 6 months when they tried to have peace talks. It was a time when you had no parliament again. And it was cut short when the NRA eventually took over power in Uganda. So we've had President Museveni as the next leader. But his portrait is not on this side because he featured prominently as the chairperson of the NRC.
That is the National Resistance
Uganda.
Council. Okay, all right. Now, there's what they call royal regalia in kingdoms. I am seeing parliamentary regalia in certain glass windows here. Would you take me through what they're exactly? Because I know they're part of the history. As we look at 100 years, all these documents, symbols, and things we're seeing here, all at one point defined the Parliament of Uganda.
Exactly. Now, one of the things of real importance here is, of course, our coat of arms. This is the one that you have seen the president being handed every 5 years. Now, the coat of arms is one of the symbols of authority that are handed over to a president. The others, of course, may be the national flag, the national constitution, the presidential standard, and the national seal. So these are items that are handed from one president
to the next president.
Now, Parliament has been the custodian of this, the coat of arms.
So this is the exact coat of arms that is handed over to the president?
Exactly. This is the one.
Exact one?
This is the
one.
Wow, yes. And this is the one he has lifted every time he has sworn in again.
All right.
Something else of importance.
So you're trying to tell me this piece here of artifact dates back to 1962?
No, it doesn't. This one doesn't. The one that we have in the lobby, which is the bigger mock-up with stuffed animals, is the largest and most original piece that you will find.
Peter, you have to take me to see that later on. Thank you very much. Okay, let's continue.
Now, something else of real importance here is this letter that was presented to Uganda at the point that Uganda got her independence from Britain. It is signed by Her Majesty Elizabeth II. I'll just read for you just a little bit.
Please.
Elizabeth II, by the grace of God of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of our other realms and territories, Queen Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith, to our misty and world beloved Sir Walter Flaming Coots, Knight Commander of the Most Distinguished Order. Well, it's quite long, but this is really what gave us the right to cede from being part of the protectorate, the British protectorate, and allowed us to have our independence. So this really would be our commendation that you are now a free country.
A free country. Okay. Well, the question of freedom then continues. There's a box I saw here. I've been watching a lot of British movies centered around, you know, the British and how they do their things. And I noticed this box here. In one of the movies I watched, it's known as the King's Box, and it's where the duties of the king and or the queen currently were always put for the things that she had to attend to, most urgent matters of governance. What is the representation of this here?
This just portrays some of the gifts that we have received from different countries. And that would be a representation of what we call a dispatch box. And just like you said, such boxes were for keeping official documents, official communication. For instance, the dispatch boxes that we have on the main table, the table in Parliament, should have been where they kept different oaths that members of Parliament take. The holy books, like the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. And also used as a lectern for persons who are presenting at table, chairpersons of committees, or the Prime Minister, for instance, during question time. But in this particular area, we have got gifts from different places, as well as different proclamations.
Peter, allow me to ask, how old are those papers that are sealed?
Now, most of these papers date back to before our independence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before 1962.
Exactly.
Okay, very interesting. Now, there's something else also that caught my attention here. There's, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to call them shields, but they look like shields. They do have the coat of arms, I think, for the British, and then the coat of arms for Uganda. However, there's also Holy Communion. And there's a prayer. So sincerely, is it not the time where we pray?
These plaques, so these plates are also donations to Uganda.
Okay.
And all of these date back to when this building was being handed over.
Okay.
Now, one of them you can see has got the seal of the British.
British.
And we have our own seal, the Ugandan coat of arms.
Yes.
Now, these were all in commemoration of Uganda getting her independence and the gifts as from one sovereign to another. But something else that you would see here that would be of interest is something from America. We don't have very much
How
history.
does America come into this picture?
Exactly. Now, in the time that the Apollo mission went to
the one to the moon.
Yes.
Okay.
They collected bits of rock that they shared with different countries.
Okay.
And in the same vein, they left the flags of the different nations on the moon.
Okay.
So Uganda's flag is somewhere, a little bit of it is on the moon.
Okay.
And we, in return, have gotten a little bit of rock from the moon.
All right. Well,
this was presented to Uganda by President Nixon.
I need to get more of that story of how we have a relation with America in the history as we talk about 100 years of Parliament. Now, you have been a part of this journey for years now, and what are your sentiments in your job as you serve the people of Uganda in your capacity as acting principal for protocol officer?
Well,
and also, in the next 100 years, what do you want to see? What should Ugandans also expect from this
It would
house?
be really nice to be here in the next 100 years. Because I would love to see the
that's a
changes.
bet, unless we put you preserve you in a bottle for some years.
No, but it has been extremely exciting for me, working especially in protocol.
Yes.
Because of the different categories of guests that Parliament has hosted.
For those of them that don't know what protocol is all about, what is your job description?
Well, so, briefly, protocol is really about a sequence, the order of things, the way things are supposed to be handled.
Okay.
In Parliament here, a protocol is the one that handles all the official visitors to Parliament, and also makes arrangements between Parliament and the foreign community. So we deal with the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the different embassies, and also to do with all the travel arrangements at Parliament. So anything to do with passports and visas and air tickets would be handled by the protocol unit.
Okay, all right.
But the kind of guests that we've received here have different ranges. For instance, Ugandans, all the way from nursery school children up to university graduates and eminent persons,
and then
they all come to Parliament, and we're happy to receive them, give them tours of Parliament, tell them about our history, that kind of thing.
All right. Peter, I think we still have another corridor that we want to look at. I believe Felix Kunda is in another part of the Parliament of Uganda and is also giving us a tour of the artifacts, the pictures, the history as we mark 100 years of the Parliament of the Republic of Uganda. Good Morning Uganda continues to celebrate Ngomuganda Wagamba tuyoza bamemba aba Parliament.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
A couple of people that are quite historical, again, in the formation of this very beautiful house, the August House. Now, some of the photos of the people you will meet on this floor of Parliament, you will have a glimpse at Brigadier Basilio Lara Okero, who was also Chairman Military Council between 27th July 1985 to 29th July 1985. Oh, that was for 2 days? Okay, that's lovely. Again, you have that is Right Honorable Professor Apollo Nsimambi, now the late Prime Minister, between the 5th of April 1999 to 2020.
2011 there. Now, of course, you come to Right Honorable Chintu Musoke, Prime Minister between 18th November 1994 to 5th April 1999, and the list goes on. We see that is Right Honorable George Cosmas Adievo, Right Honorable Engineer Abraham Waligo there, Paul Mwanga, Chairman Military Commission, and of course then you will also see he was Prime Minister between 1985, that is August 1st to 25th of August, and Dr. Otema Alimandi, Prime Minister there also. But then you'll also meet Benedicto Chiwanuka, Chief Minister there between 22nd July 1961 to 1st March 1962, but also Prime Minister 1st March 1962 to 30th April 1962. If you do take cognizance, there was very short terms for most of all these people. Some of them were just days, and many more still going on. We see Joseph Ekemu, Betty Okwe, and Honorable Moses Chigongo there, who was Vice Chairman NRC in 1986, 1996 there. Well, of course, that and much more is what we are going to be giving you here at Parliament as we celebrate 100 years of the existence of this National Assembly. Now, so much history has been made in this August House. What will we bring to you? Now, we'll be also having a couple of interviews like one we just had with Peter, who took us through a couple of histories on the different sittings. Again, now, we also have an interview with the leader of opposition. What is the role of this office? Is it about opposing, or probably also it has other connotations in how to build this Parliament? We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll be going to that particular interview with the leader of opposition. Good morning.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
For the first time in Uganda, you can pay in installments and own a smartphone instantly. Get to own the Samsung A3 Core, Samsung A01 or Samsung A11 and pay back in either daily, weekly or monthly installments for a period of a year. To check if you're eligible for the offer, dial *284*49# today. You also enjoy free 500 MB on the purchased phone every month for the entire loan repayment period. Uganda nyuma. Airtel, the smartphone network, in proud partnership with MasterCard, Samsung and Asante Financial Services.
Sinuk Uganda Limited, in partnership with Unyoro Research Agency and Development Organization, BRADO, presents to you the Sinuk Q1 National Content Supplier Development A Conference 2021 under the theme Strengthening Local SMEs for Effective Participation in the Oil and Gas Development Phase in Uganda. Panelists include Mr. Alex Yamkama, National Content Officer, Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Martin Byarhanga, Executive Director of Bunyoro Research Agency and Development Organization, Mr. Matthew Chaligonza, National Content Manager, Sinuk Uganda Limited, Engineer Fred Musinguzi, Chairperson of Bunyoro Business Club, Mr. John Walusimbi, Executive Director, Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises in Uganda, Ms. Sylvia Kirabo, Head, Marketing and Public Relations, UNBS, and moderated by Mr. Biencha Fred. The event will be live on UBC TV on Thursday, the 25th of March 2021 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Proudly brought to you by Sinuk Uganda Limited in partnership with Unyoro Research Agency and Development Organization.
That's their way of stopping HIV. What about you?
of the day on UBC, brought to you by was brought to you by
No one should stop you from finishing what's yours. That's why MTN gives you data bundles that don't expire. Load MTN Freedom bundles using my MTN app and enjoy the freedom to finish your data bundles.
MTN.
The day the world stopped was the day we found where to go. From now on, we are not going to leave anything on our plates, because we've learned to savor the moments that were always there, and they never tasted this good.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite shows.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Dust is made up of very small particles of dirt, and it collects everywhere.
So, my friend Bernard really wants to go out with your friend Bridget. Is she seeing anyone?
No, but now is not the best time. She is still getting over a really messy breakup.
Ooh, right. I'll tell him to let the dust settle before calling her.
Good idea. And warn him that there's a lot of dust.
Dust in this expression represents confusion, trouble, or just a lot of activity. So, if you let the dust settle, you wait until things have calmed down or returned to normal. And that's English in a Minute. Welcome to English in a Minute. This is a weasel. These wild animals are small and tricky.
Wow, Anna. Looks like you could use some help. Let me carry that.
Thanks, Jonathan. I can always count on you. Jessica, not so much.
She weaseled out of helping you again, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She's a weasel.
To weasel out of something means to successfully avoid doing something in a dishonest or clever way. This phrasal verb has a mostly negative meaning. You can also call someone a weasel, like Anna did. Some animals just have a bad reputation. And that's English in a Minute.
If you want to benefit from the cabbage, you can decide.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, good morning once again, and many thanks for keeping it on UBC TV on this historic day as we celebrate 100 years of existence of Uganda's Parliament. We must recall that it was on this very date in the year 1921 when the first Legislative Assembly sat, and that was in Entebbe by then, and today we celebrate 100 years. With me, we are honored on this very day to be hosting, that is the leader of the opposition, Honorable Betty Awar Achan, who is also one member of Parliament. Ochan for Gulu. You're most welcome, Honorable.
Thank you very, very much, and I'm so much excited, delighted for this occasion.
Let me first of all start by congratulating you upon reaching 100 years of Parliament, most of us, the leader of opposition.
Welcome, and as Ugandans, we must be excited, but we have to take stock of the progress we have made since 1921. That is 1921, 23rd March. So we need to take stock. You know, whenever we move, we should always be making progress. In case we don't make progress, we mark time. But it is very, very bad to retrogress. You move backwards. It is not right to move backwards. It is always good to move forward. And in case of challenges, then you stop a bit, pause, and then start moving forward. So this is the time that we also want to know how we have been journeying in these 100 years. That have we been moving well? Have we been governing our people well? This is what we are excited about. Where we have not done well, we need to also learn from our past, because we have to flash back a bit. Sometimes it is good to flash back, to reflect, and then see and say which path to follow. So
well, that we shall later on discuss, if either have we made successful strides, or have we stagnated, or have we actually put in the reverse gear in as far as ensuring that we have good laws that push for good governance in our country. But for the benefit of our viewer that is watching this program, Honorable, many want to know, we are the leader of opposition in Parliament, your office in particular that you're handling. What are the fundamental roles of this office?
Yeah, thank you very much. I am actually the 9th leader of opposition. If you take stock from 1962, that is when Uganda became independent. I am the 9th and the second woman. The first woman was Honorable Winnie Kiza. And our office is first a constitutional matter. It is in the Constitution. And number 2, we also have an Act of Parliament which recognizes this office. Many times people think that if you are in the opposition, you are an enemy of the ruling party, that oppose everything, which is not true. We give alternatives where things are not right, because very many times you need somebody to check you. We are governing public resources, and we have the state and government. So we are there to say, please, where you are taking Ugandans is not right. I want to give you, for example, when government comes up with their national budget framework paper, we also scrutinize, and then we spot out where things are not right. For example, we can advise, but you know, advice is subject to rejection or to taking. So we advise by giving our proposal. We give proposal that, you know, in agriculture, here you are not performing well. If we were the ones in power, we would make sure that agriculture gets a better portion of the national budget. Probably going to move slowly to go towards 10%, but not to remain stagnant in 2.2%, while we are doing very poorly at grassroots level. You find that there is high need for agricultural extension workers, a high need for inputs in agriculture.
You look at giving alternatives.
Yes, we give alternatives. And it has not, I think people have not yet internalized that opposition is very healthy and it's very important. I attend actually very many functions, including even sometimes grassroots functions, funeral. I was in a funeral where they say, for us here at Jolly's, we should never now move to the other side. We should be with
Honorable,
the
talking
ruling
about
party.
your office in particular, we remember it so much under Winnie Chiza, but also under Professor Ogenga Latigo.
Yes.
This was more of an officer seen of a vocal person, a person who is more aggressive,
yes,
a person who is out there to articulate issues and side with more so anything that is anti-government. And of late, there has been claims that maybe the current leader of opposition has not come out to be that very vocal, that very felt on ground.
Well, I do not know what people want, but I have always pointed out areas where we need improvement. For example, when we talk about human rights abuse, I think we have been on spot telling government that, you know, this is not right. Should not be like that. We are all people of Uganda, and all Ugandans should be given equal opportunity. We should be free. We say freedom, freedom.
Maybe how does the office work? Many people don't know how the leader of opposition conducts business. That is why many would want to believe that maybe this time around, under your term, since that is on the 3rd of August 2018. So
yes.
How do you work?
Well, probably sometimes people want you to be on the media all the time, which for me it has not been so much the case. I do a lot of my work in Parliament. So in Parliament sometimes we also come towards the end, because as a leader of opposition, you leave people first to debate, and then you come at the end. And when media has a level left, then you find that it's not captured in the media.
Because
right,
you come towards the end.
Yes, but right from the beginning, people have always said, I am a mild, not so confrontational.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, I am not very confrontational, but I push for things. I push. And I earn this name, Bad Woman, because of pushing for things. When we went to State House in 2006, pushing for Juba peace process, and pushing for women also to be in the government peace team, not to deceive us with a victim who would not articulate any issue of women. And personally, my feeling was so bad because women of the north who would come back from the bush were never given package the same as of men. They considered women as wives of combatants. So they were not given any package. We said, no, this shouldn't be the case. These women or young girls also fought alongside the men. So they deserve to be treated equally, at least via human rights. I have been vocal. I've been articulating issues. But probably I don't go to the extreme.
You don't go to the extreme?
I don't go to the extreme because I'm a mother. I always feel that people who do not want to give us freedom are bad people.
Let's look at, as Parliament celebrates good now, our viewer has understand and known why we do not see the current leader of opposition out there very aggressive as many would think due to our predecessors, the way they have been doing their business. But as we celebrate 100 years of Parliament, from you as the leader of opposition, there comes a big question. That is the quality of debate and quality of members of Parliament. If you're at liberty as the leader of opposition, more to comment on this.
Of course, quality of debate, I just would like to say it's okay. Because first look at the number. I remember one time they say, was it in the early 60s? One of our members of parliament did not know English very much. And yet he was a member of parliament. He also did his work very well. Here, people talk about quality of debate. If we cannot articulate people's issues, then we say the debate is very poor. But if we are able to articulate people's issues, the problem of quality of debate comes also for
over a time. Have we achieved this? If you're to look at the 10th parliament where you are, compared to those that were in the CA, the 6th parliament, do we see better debates? Do we see better parliamentarians' quality in terms of what they put on the floor of parliament, thereafter leading into proper legislation?
You know, quantity can disorganize quality. Right now, the quantity has become so big. You know, even in the 11th parliament, the number is even going to be bigger.
Yes.
And so, when many people want to contribute, then you are going to give 2 minutes. And sometimes people lose interest in the debate because it is not so meaningful. That is what compromises quality of debate.
So
the number of members of parliament is very big, and time can never increase by even a second. Time, a day is 24 hours, but we continue to increase the number. And as we increase the number, we want to apportion time for everybody, so that at least now let's give 2 minutes, 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, what do you debate? Are you going to come out with something meaningful? Sometimes not. There are people who are able to push when they want to do something. For example, Honorable Cecilia, she is one of those most experienced. Because I remember when I was still a student, she was already a member of parliament. So she's able to push very hard. And this, you know, all of us do not have the same quality of push. You should have a bit of